I'm Olivia Parker, 34 years old, and until just last month, my family saw me as the disappointing underachiever, even though I was actually the CEO of a billion-dollar tech company. At our yearly family BBQ, my mom laughed and dismissed me, saying, "She's just a secretary, don't pay attention to her." Meanwhile, my flawless sister Jessica boasted about her promotion at work. None of them knew that in just 3 minutes, Jessica's boss would arrive, spot me across the yard, and with just 9 words, flip their entire view of me upside down. "Madam CEO, I didn't expect to see you here." Before I share how my family's whole perception of me changed in an instant, drop a comment if your family has ever underestimated you. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about life's unexpected twists. Growing up as the middle child between my older sister Jessica and younger brother Michael felt like a lesson in invisibility. From the start, there was an unspoken pecking order in our family. Jessica was the golden child. Perfect grades, conventional ambitions. Michael was the charming baby brother who seemed to do no wrong. And I was the odd one out. Our parents, Eleanor and Richard Parker, defined themselves through their children's achievements. Mom, once a beauty pageant contestant turned real estate agent, never quite hit the success she dreamed of. Dad, a banking executive, measured value in promotions and paychecks. At our dinner table, conversations revolved around accomplishments and thinly veiled sibling comparisons. "Jessica got straight A's again," Mom would announce, proudly displaying my sister's report card like a trophy. "And she's been elected student council president." Then she'd glance at my B-plus average with a faint grimace and say, "Olivia's doing fine, I suppose." Jessica thrived under that pressure. Ticking every box on Mom and Dad's success checklist, she majored in economics because Dad suggested it, joined the right sorority because Mom insisted, and dated boys from respected families with promising futures. Meanwhile, my passion for coding and digital innovation was shrugged off as a hobby. "Computers are for playing games," Dad said, when I asked to take my first coding class at 14. "Focus on something that'll get you into a proper university." I still remember career day in 11th grade when I excitedly shared my dream of launching a tech startup to develop affordable software for community organizations. "That's sweet, honey," Mom said, patting my hand. "But maybe aim for something more realistic, like Jessica's internship at Morgan Financial Group." What they didn't get was that I wasn't rejecting success. I was redefining it. While Jessica worked corporate cocktail parties, I spent my evenings building websites for local businesses and soaking up everything I could about emerging tech. By senior year of college, the pattern was clear. Jessica graduated summa cum laude from Princeton with offers from 3 prestigious firms. My graduation from a smaller, tech-focused university barely earned a nod, even though I finished at the top of my class. "At least she finished," Dad whispered to Mom at my ceremony, loud enough for me to hear. That summer, I launched my first company with 2 classmates in a tiny rented office. We developed a customer relationship management platform tailored for nonprofits. When I tried to explain it at a family dinner, Dad checked his watch 3 times before switching the topic to Jessica's new condo. "Real estate is a smart investment," he said pointedly. "Much better than wasting money on that thing you called a startup." The irony. That very week, my little project landed its first major client. But after years of being dismissed, I'd learned to keep my successes quiet. There was freedom in being underestimated. No pressure, no expectations. Just the quiet joy of proving them wrong without their knowledge. As my company grew, so did the gap between how my family saw me and the reality. By age 28, I was leading a team of 30 and closing multi-million-dollar deals. By 30, we'd expanded internationally with offices in 3 countries. By 32, I appeared on Forbes' Entrepreneurs to Watch list, though I used just my first initial to stay under the radar. O. Parker was gaining respect in tech circles, while Olivia Parker remained Jessica's underachieving sister at family gatherings. My company, Acumen Solutions, specialized in integrated software that helped underserved communities access vital services. Our biggest breakthrough was creating scalable, affordable technology for resource-strapped organizations. The work was meaningful, challenging, and exactly what I wanted. I kept a low public profile, partly because I believed leadership didn't require a spotlight, and partly because I'd grown comfortable with my family's misconceptions. There was a strange satisfaction in succeeding completely on my own terms, without their approval or interference. Last year, when Acumen Solutions hit a $2 billion valuation and acquired our fourth competitor, Jessica called to share her promotion to senior investment manager. "You really should think about a stable job like mine," she said, after 20 minutes of outlining her new title. "Mom and Dad are worried about your future." I looked out from my corner office overlooking downtown Seattle and replied, "I'm doing fine, Jess, but thanks for your concern." She missed the amusement in my voice, just like my parents never noticed that my modest lifestyle choices were intentional. My supposedly cheap apartment was actually a carefully renovated industrial loft in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. My practical car was a limited edition electric model with a 6-month waiting list. And my casual clothes? Designer pieces picked for comfort. Not labels. I had nothing to prove. Not even to myself. But as another family gathering neared, I sometimes wondered what it would take for them to finally see me for who I really was. The Parker family BBQ was an annual ritual since childhood. What started as a simple get-together had morphed into an elaborate display of status and achievements, especially as the cousins grew up this year, driving through my parents' upscale neighborhood with a rare bottle of wine on the passenger seat. I questioned why I kept subjecting myself to this quiet ritual of humiliation. Their sprawling suburban home looked flawless as ever. Manicured lawn, Martha Stewart-worthy decor, and soft, carefully chosen background music. Mom once mentioned they hired a party planner for these casual family events. For them, image was everything. I straightened my plain white linen shirt and adjusted my sunglasses. Even though I could easily afford flashy designer brands that would impress my image-conscious relatives, I purposely opted for a subtle, high-quality look. My watch alone cost more than many people's monthly mortgage payments, but it didn't shout wealth. That simply wasn't my style. "Olivia, you made it," my mom called from the patio, her voice carrying that familiar surprise, as if she half expected me to bail. She air-kissed near my cheeks, careful not to ruin her makeup. "Jessica and Kenneth just showed up. They brought the most beautiful seafood platter from that new gourmet market." I handed her the wine, Chateau Margaux, 2010. I figured Dad might appreciate it. She glanced at the label, but didn't recognize it. "How thoughtful, I'll add it to the bar." The nearly $2,000 bottle vanished into the kitchen without another word. The backyard buzzed with relatives flaunting their versions of success. Uncle Peter flashing his new Rolex to anyone paying attention. Cousin Rachel talking up her family's recent European trip. And Jessica was holding court near the pool, rocking an obviously pricey designer sundress, her diamond engagement ring catching the sunlight as she gestured. "And then the senior partner personally requested me for the Morgan acquisition team," she told the impressed crowd. "Basically a sign I'm on the partner track." "There's my girl," Dad appeared, gin and tonic in hand, slapping me on the shoulder. "Still at that little startup?" "Still here," I replied with a small smile. "Well, persistence is admirable. But you know, Jessica's firm is always hiring. With her recommendation, I bet they could find something for you." He dropped his voice. "Benefits package is great. Health insurance, retirement plan, things to think about at your age." I held back the urge to mention that my company offered healthcare coverage far better than Morgan Financial Group's, and our retirement matching was among the industry's best. "I'll keep that in mind," I said instead. Just then, my cousin Tyler came over. "So, Olivia, what is it you do again?" "Something with computers, software development, and integration solutions," I answered. His eyes glazed over immediately. "Cool, cool. Hey, did you see Jessica's new car? 60,000 cash, no financing." He wandered off before I could respond. As more family members arrived, I drifted toward the food prep area. Mom had hired caterers, but I found comfort in arranging platters and filling ice buckets. It gave me something to do besides explaining my vague tech job to disinterested relatives. Need any help? Kenneth, Jessica's husband of 3 years, asked. Unlike my sister, Kenneth always treated me with genuine respect. As a pediatric surgeon, he measured success differently than my parents. Just hiding out for a bit, I admitted. He smiled knowingly. Jessica's on edge today, nervous her boss will stop by later. Apparently, he wants to meet the family since they'll be working closely. William Reynolds? I asked, trying to keep my face neutral. That's him, you know him. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. My COO's name on the caller ID. Sorry, I have to take this. I stepped into a quiet corner of the yard. Grace, what's up? The Morgan acquisition paperwork needs your final signature. Legal made all the changes you requested, including retention packages for their middle management. All approved? Yes, the board's unanimous. We can finalize today if you're ready. Send the docs to my secure email. I'll review and sign within the hour. When I returned, Mom was calling everyone to lunch. Olivia, there you are. We're seating you at table 3 with the cousins, the kids' table. At 34, Jessica and Kenneth sat at the main table with my parents, Aunt Linda, and Uncle Robert, both doctors. Meanwhile, I was squeezed between my 16-year-old cousin Madison and my always unemployed cousin Dennis. Dad stood and raised a glass for a toast. Thank you all for coming to our little tradition. We have much to celebrate this year. Michael's promotion at his law firm. A pause for applause. Linda and Robert's 30th anniversary. More applause. And, of course, Jessica's extraordinary achievement taking on senior responsibilities at Morgan Financial Group, managing accounts worth over $100 million. Cheers erupted as Jessica beamed. And we're all here together, healthy and happy, Dad concluded, with a broad gesture that presumably included me in the family's blessings. Throughout the meal, the main table buzzed about Jessica's accomplishments. I answered Madison's questions about colleges for computer science when Aunt Catherine leaned over from the next table. Olivia, darling, are you seeing anyone? Brenda's son, David, just moved back after his divorce. He's an insurance adjuster, a very stable career. I'm focusing on work right now, I replied. At your age, you should be focusing on family, she said pointedly. The biological clock waits for no woman. Mom overheard and added, Olivia's always been a late bloomer. Remember she couldn't ride a bike until she was 9? She laughed affectionately, as if recounting a cute childhood quirk instead of publicly infantilizing me. Later, as family mingled again, I found myself talking with Dad and Uncle Peter about the housing market. Property values in the tech corridor are soaring, I explained. If you're looking to invest, focus on developing areas just outside the main hubs. They're undervalued now, but will rise significantly once expansion plans are approved. Uncle Peter nodded thoughtfully, then turned to Dad. Speaking of real estate, Richard, have you thought more about those commercial properties downtown? Dad straightened. Absolutely. I was just telling Michael yesterday that the tech corridor's peripheral areas are where the smart money's headed. Tremendous growth potential. I blinked as Dad repeated my exact advice, word for word, without giving me credit. Brilliant insight, Richard, Uncle Peter said. While others nodded appreciatively, I excused myself to step outside and respond to the acquisition documents Grace sent, as I signed electronically, authorizing a $300 million deal that would reshape both companies. I couldn't help but chuckle at the irony. Inside, my family was still congratulating themselves over 6-figure raises and clever dinner party remarks. When I rejoined the group, Jessica had everyone hanging on her every word as she spun detailed tales of her corporate exploits. So there I was, in the boardroom with the executive committee, she said, waving her wine glass for emphasis. London office on one screen, Tokyo on another, and everyone waiting for my take on the Asian markets. Mom watched her with pure admiration. Jessica's always had such presence, she told Aunt Catherine. Even as a little girl, she commanded attention. I quietly settled at the edge of the circle, happy to observe the family dynamics unfold. Kenneth caught my eye and gave a subtle smile that seemed to say, "Here we go again." William Reynolds himself said my presentation was exactly what Morgan Financial needs going forward, Jessica continued, stressing the CEO's name for effect. He's stopping by today, just briefly. Says he likes to meet the families of key team members. A CEO who makes house calls, Uncle Robert remarked, impressed. That's quite the honor, Jessica. Mom practically buzzed with pride. We always knew Jessica would go far. From the moment she got into Princeton, we said she was destined for greatness. Dad nodded knowingly. It's about having a clear plan and executing it. Jessica understood that from day one. No distractions, no detours. The unspoken comparison hung thick in the air. Jessica, the daughter with the perfect path, and me, the one who'd wandered. Kenneth, quiet until then, spoke up. Olivia runs her own company. She's been pretty successful too. An awkward silence followed. Well, yes, Mom said with a tight smile. Olivia has her website business, very entrepreneurial software solutions. I gently corrected her. Is that like IT support? Cousin Rachel chimed in. My husband's company just hired someone to fix their computers. Maybe you could send them your resume. Before I could respond, Jessica laughed. Olivia's too independent for corporate life. She likes setting her own hours, working in coffee shops. There's value in that lifestyle too, Mom quickly added, clearly eager to shift gears. Let's start setting up dessert, Olivia. Would you help me bring out the plates? You're so good with those practical tasks. As we arranged dessert in the kitchen, Mom kept up a running commentary about Jessica's upcoming visit from William Reynolds. Should I offer him coffee or something stronger? What kind of impression would that make? Jessica says he's very particular about appearances. I'm sure he's just a normal person, I said. She looked at me like I'd claimed aliens had landed. He's the CEO of one of the largest financial institutions in the country. Olivia, nothing normal about him. This visit could be crucial for Jessica's career. I bit back the urge to remind her, CEOs are just people, then asked, Need help carrying anything else out? No, the caterers have it covered. You can go back to the young people's table. She patted my arm. Try to mingle more. Dear, networking's important, even in your field. When dessert was served, I found myself again stuck at the sidelines. While Jessica commanded the center stage, Dad raised his glass for another toast, this one praising Jessica's sharp business skills and the honor of William Reynolds' impending visit. My Aunt Meredith slid in beside me. So, Olivia, still single? No prospects? I'm focusing on building my company right now. She leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. You know, dear, there's more to life than work. Your biological clock is ticking. Jessica's got her career and a wonderful husband. Maybe it's time to shift your priorities. My priorities are exactly where I want them, I said calmly. She sniffed. Independence is fine, but no one wants to end up alone. Surely there's someone suitable for you, even with your limited options. Her casual cruelty stung more than I wanted to admit. After years of family gatherings like this, I should have been immune, but somehow, each dismissal still hit home. I excused myself again to check another message from Grace. We were finalizing details for tomorrow's announcement about the Morgan Financial acquisition, a merger that would massively expand our global reach. Everything's set, I texted back. Press release approved, schedule the announcement for 9 a.m. Eastern. Congratulations, boss, she replied. This changes everything. Sliding my phone back into my pocket, I caught Jessica's curious gaze. Important message? She asked, a hint of condescension in her voice. Just work, I said with a shrug. On a Saturday, no less, that startup life sounds exhausting. At least in my position, I have boundaries, weekends are sacred. William's big on work-life balance for the exec team. I fought back a smile at the irony. William Reynolds was notorious for being on call day or night and expecting the same from senior staff, but I simply nodded. That sounds nice. Dessert went on with the same old patterns. Dad and Uncle Peter chatted investments. Ignoring my input, Mom kept spotlighting Jessica's achievements. To anyone within earshot, cousins either ignored me or offered well-meaning but condescending advice about real jobs. I found myself wondering, not for the first time, why I kept showing up at these gatherings. What was I hoping to change? Did I still crave my parents' approval after all these years? Or was I just punishing myself for not fitting their narrow definition of success? My phone buzzed again, but this time it was a news alert. One of our competitors had just announced a major acquisition. The timing uncanny. Just a day before ours. I'd need to review it with the communications team tonight. Olivia, seriously, can you put that phone away for 5 minutes? Mom called from across the patio. Family time is for family, not for whatever little emergency your website is having. A few relatives chuckled, and I felt my cheeks flush despite myself. 34 years old, running a $1 billion company, and my mother still knew how to make me feel like a scolded teenager. Sorry, I muttered, slipping my phone into my pocket. As the afternoon dragged on, I grew more withdrawn, replying with polite smiles and vague answers. Kenneth tried once more to engage the group about my work, but Dad smoothly steered the conversation back to Michael's latest courtroom win. Just as I was considering leaving early, Jessica suddenly straightened up, her posture snapping into alert, professional mode. "He's early," she hissed to Kenneth, frantically smoothing her hair. "William's already here. Mom, Dad. He's pulling into the driveway." The energy in the backyard shifted instantly as everyone subtly adjusted their positions and expressions, gearing up to impress the arriving VIP. I couldn't help but grin at the absurdity of it all. If only they knew what tomorrow's headlines would reveal. I stepped back toward the edge of the gathering, tempted for a moment to slip away before the big reveal and avoid the awkwardness. Yet, the part of me that had endured years of being dismissed and underestimated urged me to stay. Maybe it was finally time for my family to see me clearly. Mom busied herself rearranging flowers and smoothing tablecloths, making sure everything looked perfect. Jessica, stand by the entrance to greet him properly. Eleanor, Richard, Charles, move those cocktails out of sight. Jessica looked nervous, her usual confidence faltering as she positioned herself near the patio door. "Remember," she whispered stage-like to everyone, "William is incredibly influential. His opinion of me, and of us, could shape my entire career." Dad nodded solemnly, as if preparing to meet royalty. "We understand the stakes, Jessica. We'll make you proud." I lingered near the refreshment table, curious about the man himself. William Reynolds had a reputation for being a shrewd but fair leader. In our brief dealings during acquisition talks, I'd found him perceptive and straightforward, though a bit old-fashioned in style. "Olivia," Mom called, noticing my relaxed stance. "At least try to look professional. First impressions matter." Before I could reply, a relative I barely recognized asked, "Who's that woman by the drinks? Shouldn't she be helping in the kitchen?" Mom glanced over and laughed dismissively. "She's just a secretary, ignore her." Olivia never quite found her path like Jessica did. The casual cruelty hung thick in the air. Jessica laughed nervously, her eyes flickering toward me with a hint of guilt. Kenneth frowned, but stayed silent. Trapped between family loyalty and decency, I felt that sting sharper than usual after a day full of slights. For a fleeting moment, I thought about walking out, driving away, and closing this chapter for good. Why keep putting myself through this? Tomorrow's news would spill everything anyway, without me watching their reactions. But before I could decide, a tall, distinguished man in his early 60s appeared at the patio entrance. William Reynolds looked exactly as he had in our video calls, impeccably dressed, even in casual weekend clothes. His sharp eyes scanning the scene, Jessica rushed forward. "William, thank you so much for coming. Let me introduce you to my family." He smiled politely, but his attention quickly shifted, scanning the backyard, bypassing Jessica's eager introductions until his gaze landed on me. His expression changed from polite interest to genuine surprise. "Olivia Parker," he said, moving past a stunned Jessica toward me. The crowd fell silent, all eyes locking onto this unexpected moment. William extended his hand. Madam CEO, I didn't expect you here. What a pleasant surprise! Silence deepened, almost palpable. Jessica's face drained of color, her mouth opening and closing wordlessly. Mom gripped Dad's arm so tightly, her knuckles whitened. Hello, William, I said calmly, shaking his hand. Nice to meet you in person after all our calls. Indeed, I was just reviewing the final paperwork this morning. He glanced around, noticing the stunned faces. Have I said something inappropriate? Jessica was the first to speak, her voice a strangled whisper. You know my sister? William looked between us, realization dawning. Your sister? Olivia Parker is your sister? The Olivia Parker? He chuckled. Well, that explains the resemblance, though I certainly wouldn't have connected you through business dealings. Dad stepped forward, confusion crossing his face. Business dealings? I don't understand. William raised an eyebrow. Mr. Parker, your daughter is one of the most respected CEOs in tech. Surely you know Acumen Solutions has been negotiating to acquire Morgan Financial Group for 6 months. The collective gasp was almost comical. Jessica swayed. Kenneth steadied her quickly. Acquire? She repeated faintly. That's impossible. Morgan's worth $300 million at current valuation. William finished her thought. A significant investment, yes, but well within Acumen's capabilities. The board approved final terms yesterday. Mom sank into a nearby chair. Olivia is a secretary, she murmured weakly. William laughed, assuming a joke. Hardly Miss Parker founded Acumen Solutions 8 years ago. It's valued at over $2 billion, employs more than 400 people across 3 continents. He looked at me. Though she keeps an unusually low profile for her stature, most CEOs would be more visible. Every eye turned to me, faces ranging from shock to disbelief to dawning embarrassment. Is this true? Dad asked. Voice unusually small, I nodded simply, it is. Jessica seemed to process this in slow motion. You're acquiring Morgan, my company. Her voice rose slightly. I've spent 8 years climbing, and you just buy it. The acquisition's been underway for some time, I explained gently. It's nothing personal. Jessica Morgan's infrastructure and clients complement our expansion goals. Nothing personal, she repeated incredulously. You're becoming my boss, and you never told me all those dinners where I talked about my work, my promotion. You just sat there knowing. The accusation hung heavy between us, exposing the deep disconnect. Years of trying to share my successes, only to be dismissed or ignored. Conversations always redirected to Jessica's conventional achievements, subtle and overt messages that my path wasn't worth discussing. Would you have believed me if I told you? I asked softly. Her silence said it all. William, sensing the tension, tried to ease the moment. Well, this is certainly unexpected, but maybe fortunate family ties can strengthen business. He smiled awkwardly, clearly regretting his part in the reveal. The gathering remained frozen. Jessica pale and speechless, my parents visibly struggling to reshape their view of their middle child. Relatives exchanged puzzled looks and whispered quietly, while I stood composed at the eye of a storm I hadn't started but could no longer avoid. A heavy stillness settled over the crowd as my family wrestled with the daughter they thought they knew, and the startling truth William Reynolds had just unveiled. It was my cousin Tyler who finally broke the silence with a nervous chuckle. This has to be a prank, right? Olivia's company buying Morgan Financial? That's impossible. William lifted an eyebrow. I assure you, it's not a joke. The acquisition will be publicly announced tomorrow morning. Acumen Solutions has been steadily growing its financial technology sector over the past 18 months. Morgan Financial's client base and infrastructure make it a perfect strategic fit. My father cleared his throat, his face caught between confusion and the first blush of embarrassment. Olivia never mentioned any of this. We had no idea her company was this significant. Significant? William appeared genuinely taken aback. Mr. Parker, Acumen Solutions is among the decade's fastest-growing tech firms. Their integrated platform transformed how nonprofits manage resources, then branched into healthcare systems, government contracts, and now financial services. He turned to me. I had assumed your family would be your loudest advocates, given your accomplishments. The unspoken message hung in the air. If my family didn't know about my success, it wasn't due to a lack of achievement. Jessica found her voice, trembling slightly. Why didn't you tell us? We've spent years talking about my career and promotion, while you sat there knowing you were what? Some tech mogul? Beneath her indignation, there was real hurt, which caught me off guard. I had braced for anger, defensiveness, even accusations of dishonesty, but not this kind of pain. I did try to tell you, I replied softly. How many times? When? My mother asked sharply. When exactly did you tell us you ran a $1 billion company? Memories surfaced. The dinner 6 years prior, when I mentioned landing our first major client, only to have the subject quickly shifted to Jessica's new apartment. The Christmas party, where I tried to share our expansion into Europe, but no one asked a single follow-up question. The countless occasions when my startup was dismissed as a pastime rather than a career 3 Thanksgivings ago, I said. I told you our company was valued over $100 million. Dad asked if Jessica had told me about her new company car. 2 Christmases ago, I added, I spoke about opening our Tokyo office. Mom redirected the conversation to Michael's girlfriend's family background. Last summer, I continued, I began explaining our healthcare platform, and Aunt Catherine interrupted to ask when I was going to get a real job with benefits. Relatives exchanged uneasy glances, some faces showing dawning understanding. But you never corrected us, Jessica argued. You never stopped us from making assumptions about your career. Would you have believed me? I asked again, or thought I was exaggerating to compete? Her silence answered William, clearly uncomfortable with the unfolding family drama, tried to refocus on professional matters. Miss Parker's leadership is widely recognized in the industry for being understated yet highly effective. She lets results speak rather than seeking personal accolades, and the results have been exceptional. He added, Acumen boasts one of the highest employee retention rates in tech. The company consistently surpasses profit forecasts while upholding ethical business practices. Just last month, Olivia was named Visionary of the Year by the Innovation Council, though I understand she declined the invitation. He looked to me expectantly. It conflicted with Michael's law firm celebration, I explained, the very event I missed to sit at the kids' table during yet another family gathering where my achievements were overlooked. My father ran his hand through thinning hair, visibly struggling to reshape his view. But you never acted like a success. You drive that practical car, live in that modest apartment. I smiled despite myself. Dad, my practical car is a limited edition electric model with a 20-person waiting list. My modest apartment is a penthouse loft in Tribeca, featured in Architectural Digest last year, though they respected my privacy by not naming me. But you never spoke like Jessica does, about big meetings or deals, my mother protested. The unfairness in that statement lingered. I hadn't presented success by their standards. I didn't name-drop, boast, or seek validation. Because of that, they assumed there was nothing to validate. Kenneth spoke up then. Actually, Eleanor, she did remember last Christmas when Olivia was on her phone and you told her to put it away. She said it was an urgent business matter and you said, whatever emergency your little website is having can wait. His tone was gentle yet firm, reminding them that emergency was likely a multi-million-dollar decision. My mother's face flushed. How were we supposed to know? You never made it clear your work mattered. Because in this family, Kenneth continued before I could, importance has always been measured by how loudly it's proclaimed, not by its real value. Jessica turned to William, panic replacing family tension. This won't affect my job, right? The promotion I just got? William hesitated. That's ultimately Miss Parker's decision as CEO of the parent company. But if I may say, your sister doesn't seem like someone who lets personal feelings influence business decisions. All eyes shifted to me. The acquisition isn't about Jessica, I confirmed. It's about merging Morgan's financial infrastructure with ours to better serve underserved markets. Staffing decisions will be based on merit and need, nothing else. Jessica looked unconvinced. But you'll be my boss. Technically, I'll be your boss's boss's boss, I corrected gently. Day-to-day operations will remain under current management, at least initially. Dad, ever focused on the bottom line, seemed to recalculate my role in his world. $2 billion, he murmured. Olivia, why didn't you ever— We could have helped, advised you. A flash of old hurt hit me, like when they told me to get a real job or follow Jessica's path instead of pursuing my own vision. We were trying to protect you, Mom insisted. The business world is harsh, especially for women. We didn't want you to be disappointed. I nodded, understanding, and I had felt that disappointment. Their dismissals came from a place of misguided concern, but protection shouldn't mean shutting down someone's dreams. It should mean supporting them, even when their path is hard to grasp. William cleared his throat. If I may add, Olivia's reputation in the industry is outstanding. She's known for spotting overlooked opportunities and building solutions that add value across sectors. Several colleagues on various boards consider her one of the most innovative tech leaders today. My aunts and uncles, who had watched this exchange with shock and fascination, now regarded me with fresh eyes, curious, respectful, and in some cases calculating, as if re-evaluating a relationship they might now benefit from. Well, my cousin Rachel said with a strained laugh, I guess we'll all have to stop giving Olivia career advice. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. The tension shifted. Family dynamics realigned around this new truth. Jessica stayed silent, unreadable. The competition that had defined our relationship since childhood was suddenly, irrevocably changed. The golden child now indirectly reporting to the once overlooked sibling William, having unintentionally sparked this family upheaval, discreetly checked his watch. I should probably head out, Jessica. We can discuss transition details Monday at the office. He turned to me with genuine respect. Olivia, always a pleasure, looking forward to finalizing tomorrow. As he left, the perfect family gathering facade shattered, replaced by something raw, uncertain, yet perhaps more honest than years past. My father approached, his face a complex mix of emotions. Olivia, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry if we made you feel your work wasn't valued. It's not about apologies, Dad, I replied. It's about seeing people for who they truly are, not who you expect. The gathering had changed irrevocably. The carefully maintained family hierarchy overturned, no one sure how to move forward. Yet beneath the shock and awkwardness, I sensed a new beginning. As William's car disappeared down the driveway, the family broke into clusters of animated conversation. Relatives who had ignored me for years suddenly found reasons to reconnect, their curiosity thinly veiled as casual interest. Olivia, we should have lunch soon, Aunt Catherine suggested. The same woman who'd been trying to set me up with recently divorced insurance adjusters just an hour before. I've always thought the family needs more quality time together. I smiled politely, but made no promises. Their sudden shift was both amusing and a little sad. Had my worth really been tied so tightly to their validation? Jessica vanished immediately after William left, Kenneth close behind. I found them in our childhood bedroom. Jessica sitting stiffly on the bed's edge, Kenneth standing by the window. Can we talk? I asked from the doorway. Jessica looked up, her face a tangled mix of hurt, anger, and embarrassment. 8 years, she whispered. 8 years at Morgan, climbing the ladder, playing by all the rules. And you just buy the whole company? Kenneth gave me a sympathetic look, but stayed quiet. This was sister business. I took a breath. Jess, the acquisition isn't about you. It's a business decision months in the making. But you knew, she shot back, voice rising. All those times I talked about my work, my promotion, how important this opportunity with William was. You knew you were negotiating to become my boss. I never meant to undermine you. I said calmly. Morgan has clients and infrastructure that fit our growth plans. It's business, not personal. Jessica laughed bitterly. Not personal. You humiliated me in front of our whole family and my boss. That wasn't my intention, I replied. William showing up today surprised me as much as you. I had no idea he planned to stop by. But you could have warned me about the acquisition. I sat beside her on the bed, leaving some space. Would it really have helped to tell you in private that your company was being bought? That you might have information you couldn't ethically share with coworkers? She was silent, considering. Besides, I added gently, when was I supposed to say it? When Mom dismissed my career as playing with computers? When Dad suggested I apply for an entry-level job at your firm? Or during countless family gatherings where no one asked a single question about my work? Kenneth spoke up. She's right, Jess. Your family never made it easy for Olivia to share her successes. Jessica shot him a betrayed look, but didn't argue. After a moment, her voice softened. What about my position now? Nothing changes right away, I assured her. This is about system integration and expanding our market, not shaking up staff. Your performance will still be judged by the same standards. But my boss will be my sister, she pointed out. No, your immediate supervisors will keep managing your team. I oversee the parent company. I won't be reviewing your quarterly reports myself. She looked somewhat relieved, but still conflicted. Did you ever think about telling me? Just me, not the whole family? The question caught me off guard. Honestly, no, Jessica and I were never close. We competed more than connected, but saying that would only hurt her more. I separated family from work long ago, I said carefully. It seemed easier that way. Easier than dealing with our parents' reactions, she finished. It wasn't a question. We sat quietly for a moment, our childhood room witnessing a subtle shift in our adult relationship. Downstairs, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. When I returned to the gathering, conversations paused briefly, before resuming with forced ease. Dad had opened the pricey wine I'd brought, now savoring it with newfound respect. Mom flitted nervously among guests, her usual confident hosting. Shaken Dad called me over, waving me toward where he stood beside Uncle Peter. I was just telling Peter about that investment tip you gave earlier, about focusing on the outskirts of the tech corridor. Really sharp insight. The very same advice he'd borrowed without a hint of credit just hours before. Thanks, Dad, I replied simply. Uncle Peter sized me up with fresh interest. Your father's mentioned you've built quite an enterprise. We ought to talk about possible partnerships. My investment group's always hunting for promising ventures. I noticed a few cousins inching closer, subtly pulling out their phones to quietly browse my company's site. Oh, wow, one whispered, eyes wide. Look at their clients. Google, Microsoft, even the Gates Foundation. Mom approached and gently touched my arm. Sweetheart, I saved some of that special cheesecake for you. I know it's always been your favorite. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same family that had pushed me to the kids' table was now treating me like royalty. It would be hilarious if it weren't so telling about the conditional nature of love and approval. Michael, my younger brother, was perhaps the most genuine. Later, he found me alone on the patio steps. So, my big sister's a secret billionaire? He said, sitting down beside me. Not exactly a billionaire personally, I corrected. The company's worth over $2 billion. He whistled low, amazed. Still, I don't even know what to say. I feel awful for never really listening when you talked about your work. You weren't as dismissive as Mom and Dad, I offered. Maybe not, he admitted, but I wasn't supportive either. He looked truly sorry. I always figured Jessica was the successful one because she talked about it more and fit Mom and Dad's idea of achievement. It's not your fault, I said. Our family has a narrow way of measuring success, a yardstick you broke, and then built a multi-billion-dollar company with. He smiled, then grew serious. Still, I should have paid more attention. I'm sorry. His apology felt genuine, in a way our parents' awkward attempts never did. Thanks, Michael. That means a lot. So what now? He asked. With the family, everything feels different. That was the question I'd been wrestling with since William's surprise announcement. The comfortable invisibility I'd lived with for years was shattered. My success was now undeniable, impossible for my family to downplay. Yet their sudden interest and approval felt hollow after years of ignoring me. I don't know, I admitted. I guess we'll have to find a new balance. As the gathering wound down, Mom pulled me aside, her voice unusually soft and vulnerable. I don't understand why you never told us, she said honestly. We're your parents. We would have been proud. Her simple words clashed with years of opposite behavior. Would you, Mom? Because I told you many times, you just weren't interested in the kind of success I chased. That's not fair, Olivia. How were we to know your little startup would grow so big? By listening when I spoke, I answered gently. By asking questions instead of changing the subject. By trusting I could succeed on my own terms, instead of pushing me to follow Jessica's path. She had no comeback, but her expression suggested she was finally considering my side. For perhaps the first time, as guests began to leave, many made a point to say goodbye to me, slipping in requests for meetings or mentioning relatives looking for jobs or investors. The sudden shift in how they treated me was both gratifying and a little sad. Jessica and Kenneth were among the last to depart. Kenneth hugged me warmly, whispering, For what it's worth, I've always thought you were extraordinary. This just confirms what I knew. Jessica's farewell was quieter, a reflection of how our new professional roles complicated an already tangled relationship. I'll see you Monday, I guess, or at least your company reps. It'll be okay, Jess, I reassured her. This doesn't have to change us. She smiled sadly. It already has. She wasn't wrong. That revelation had changed the family dynamic forever. The carefully held hierarchy, with Jessica at the top and me near the bottom, was overturned. The question was whether we could build something healthier from the ruins. As I got ready to leave, Dad caught me for a private word. Olivia, I want you to know, we always wanted what was best for you. Maybe we were wrong about what that looked like, but our intentions were good. I know, Dad, I said sincerely. You wanted to shield me from disappointment. Yes, exactly, he said with relief. The tech world's odds are tough. We didn't want you to get hurt. But protection shouldn't mean shutting down dreams, I replied. Sometimes the greatest help is simply believing something's possible, even if you don't fully understand it. He nodded thoughtfully. I suppose we all lived with certain assumptions for a long time. We have, I agreed. The question is whether we're ready to let them go and finally see each other clearly. It was the first honest talk we'd had in years, maybe ever. Driving away from their house that night, I felt drained but oddly free. The family's image of me was shattered, for better or worse. What would come next was anyone's guess. 3 weeks later, I stood in my penthouse kitchen, preparing coffee for Dad's first visit to my real home. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a breathtaking city skyline. Morning sunlight poured in, highlighting clean lines, warm textures, and elegant simplicity. My personal style reflected perfectly. The doorbell rang precisely at 9, Dad's punctuality unchanged, despite everything else that had shifted between us. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Good morning, Dad, I said with a genuine smile. He stood awkwardly, holding a small potted plant. Your mother thought you might like this for your home. Though now that I see it, this place hardly needs any decoration. His eyes widened as he took in the expansive living area. Olivia, this is amazing. Thank you, come in. Coffee's ready. He followed me inside, his gaze sweeping over custom furnishings, original artwork, and seamlessly integrated cutting-edge technology. His expression was that of a man recalibrating his understanding of his daughter in real time. Please, have a seat. I gestured toward the dining area, overlooking the park below. "How's Mom doing?" I asked. He answered cautiously, "She's adjusting, we both are." It's not every day you find out your daughter's running a $1 billion company you had no clue about. I poured the coffee, taking a moment to collect my thoughts. This conversation had been 3 weeks in the making, after several awkward phone calls and one tense family dinner where everyone pretended everything was normal. "Dad, I asked you here because I think we need to have an honest talk, just the two of us." He nodded, looking more vulnerable than usual. "I agree." "Why did you never take my career seriously?" I asked bluntly. "Even before you knew the scale of what I'd built? Why was my path always seen as less important than Jessica's?" He stared into his coffee for a long beat before replying. "I was afraid for you," he admitted. "The business world. I understood the corporate ladder Jessica was climbing. It had clear measures of success. There was security in that, but yours." He shook his head. "I didn't understand it. All I saw were risks, potential failure. I couldn't bear to watch you get hurt. But in trying to protect me from failure, you couldn't see my success," I said softly. "No, I couldn't," he acknowledged. "And that's on me, not you." His admission surprised me. Dad rarely owned mistakes so plainly. "I pushed you toward what I knew," he continued. "What worked for me, I thought that's what good parents do. Guide their kids toward safe harbors. When you chose your own path, I was terrified." He confessed, "Every time you talked about your company, all I could think was, 9 out of 10 startups fail. I couldn't see past the stats to the work you were doing. That was my failure of imagination." His honesty was disarming. I'd expected defensiveness or excuses. But instead, he offered a vulnerability I hadn't known from him before. "I never needed you to understand the technical stuff," I told him. "I just needed you to believe in me, even when my path looked different from the one you wanted." "I know that now," he said quietly. "Your mother and I have talked a lot these past weeks about how we measured success, how we treated you differently from Jessica and Michael." He met my eyes directly. "We were wrong, Olivia. I'm truly sorry." The apology I'd longed for landed differently than I'd imagined. No triumph, just quiet sorrow for all the years lost. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "It means a lot." "The irony is," he smiled sadly, "you're the most successful of all of us. And you did it without our support. That's humbling." "I didn't do it to prove anything to you," I assured him. "I did it because I believed in my vision. That makes it even more remarkable." He glanced around my home again. "All this? You built it yourself." While they dismissed my work as a hobby, I decided to be honest. "That hurt, Dad. Every time you suggested I get a real job or follow Jessica's path. Every time Mom changed the subject. When I tried sharing my achievements, it hurt." He nodded, accepting the pain without defensiveness. "I can't change the past, only try to do better moving forward." He hesitated, then asked, "Would you be willing to tell me about your company now? I want to understand what you've built." It was a small olive branch, sincerely offered. For the next hour, I explained how Acumen Solutions evolved from a small nonprofit software startup into a global tech leader. Dad listened closely, asking thoughtful questions, never once comparing me to Jessica or suggesting I could have done things differently by the time he left. Something had shifted. Not full forgiveness, but the start of a new understanding. As we hugged goodbye, he said, "I'm proud of you, Olivia. Not just for what you've accomplished, impressive as it is, but for who you are. I should have seen that sooner." Healing unfolded in unexpected ways over the following months. Mom was less direct but equally genuine, sending me articles about women in tech, sometimes with questions revealing her effort to understand my world. Small gestures, but meaningful. Jessica was the hardest to rebuild. With the Morgan acquisition, went smoothly professionally, but personally, we struggled to find our new balance. Our monthly lunches were awkward at first, neither sure how to relate with our roles so dramatically reversed. "It's strange," she admitted, during our third meeting post-acquisition. "I always thought of myself as the successful sister, the one with it all figured out. Now I don't know who I am next to you. You're still successful, Jess, I reminded her. The acquisition doesn't erase your achievements, but it changes how and everyone, sees them. She stirred her coffee absently. I always thought I was on this amazing path, and you were the one who needed guidance. Finding out you were so far ahead makes me question everything I thought I knew. Success isn't a competition, I said. We're on different paths, and neither is less valid. Says the billionaire? She teased with a spark of our old rivalry, but her smile softened the jab. Not quite, I corrected automatically, realizing she was joking. Over time, our talks became more genuine. Jessica's initial resentment softened into real curiosity about my work, while I gained appreciation for her ability to navigate corporate worlds I'd avoided. We'd never be best friends. Our personalities and values were too different, but we were learning how to be sisters without the toxic competition our parents had bred. 6 months after William Reynolds' surprise visit upended our family dynamic, I hosted dinner at my place for the extended family. It was the first time I'd opened my private space to them, a conscious step toward fully blending my personal and professional worlds. Watching them move through my home, admiring the art that reflected my tastes, studying family photos displayed alongside industry awards I'd finally taken out of storage, I realized something crucial. I wasn't seeking their approval anymore. For so long, part of me had kept showing up at family gatherings, hoping they'd finally see me, truly see me. But now that they finally could see me, I realized their recognition was never truly the goal. My success wasn't defined by their approval, nor was my value set by where they chose to seat me at dinner. The real triumph wasn't in proving them wrong. It was in building a life that felt authentically mine. Regardless of their acceptance later that evening, as conversations flowed more naturally than they ever had at my parents' meticulously planned gatherings, Kenneth found me on the balcony. "Quite the turnaround," he remarked, nodding toward where Mom was genuinely laughing with my CFO, who I'd invited to help ease the atmosphere. "It's progress," I agreed, slow and sometimes awkward progress. He smiled. "You know what I admire most? You never gave up on them. Even when they failed to recognize your worth, you kept showing up year after year. That takes real strength." I thought about his words. I think I had to prove to myself that I could succeed on my own terms, without cutting ties to my past. And now? Now I don't need to prove anything to anyone, even myself. Inside, Jessica was sharing details about a project she was leading, her voice carrying a newfound confidence born from within rather than external praise. Dad listened to Michael with genuine interest, no longer judging his words by some rigid standard. Mom had stopped her anxious fluttering among guests and was simply enjoying the moment. Small shifts, yes, but deeply meaningful. The healing wasn't finished. Old patterns ran too deep to disappear overnight, but we were learning to truly see one another, to appreciate our differences instead of forcing everyone into the same mold. The journey from that humiliating BBQ to this moment of real connection hadn't been easy. Difficult conversations, painful acknowledgments, and moments when old habits nearly resurfaced. Yet growth happened on all sides. I no longer needed my family to grasp every detail of my work or celebrate my achievements in prescribed ways. And they were learning love shouldn't hinge on meeting certain expectations. As the night wound down and guests began leaving, Mom hugged me tight. "Thank you for giving us another chance," she whispered. "For giving me a chance to be the mother you deserve." "We're all learning," I said softly. Later, alone in my quiet apartment, I reflected on the unusual path that brought me here. Years of being underestimated had paradoxically given me freedom to define success on my own terms, free from others' demands. Their dismissal was, in some ways, a gift, pushing me to seek validation from within, not from the outside. The true lesson wasn't about proving my worth to others. It was about realizing it had been inside me all along. Gazing out over the city lights, I felt a deep peace. Our family's next chapter was still unwritten, but now we held the pen together. creating something more genuine than before. Being underestimated was once my greatest wound. Now I see it was also my greatest strength. What about you? Has being underestimated ever turned into your superpower? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that sometimes. Being underestimated is the greatest gift of all. Thank you for hearing my journey. And remember, the only validation that truly counts is the one you give yourself.